welcome to We Never Met, the podcast where I have interesting strangers on every single week. Today, I don't want to mess up your name. I know you phonetically put it on your Instagram, so people didn't mess it up, but you can introduce yourself.
My name is Silke. My artist page is Silke Noel.
And just to give people a background on what you do, because I obviously know, and the stuff that you're doing more now, like the stained glass work, I think is like really, really amazing and cool. So can you give people a little background on what you do as an artist?
Sure. Yeah. I've been doing stained glass for about a year now. I think we just passed the 1-year anniversary on it. I've been working in a lot of mediums since early high school and even before then. I'd say that my favorite mediums to work with are stained glass right now. Obviously, I really enjoy screen printing and painting of all sorts, oil and acrylic and watercolor.
Was stained glass something that how did that come up for you? Because I see it a lot, obviously, in people see it in churches and things like that, but I feel like it's on a renaissance or something. Like it's more people, I'm seeing more and more of it, at least independent artists doing it. So how did you get into it?
In high school, we had an opportunity to do mosaic work, which involves stained glass as well. I don't remember doing any specific soldering with that, but I got back into it about a year ago after talking with some friends, and it started just showing up more on my Instagram as things that I might be interested in. And when I started with the glass painting, before I started with stained glass, I knew I wanted to work in the glass medium. I really enjoyed it. And I think it's pretty funny that stained glass is cutting glass and then putting cut glass back together.
Yeah. That is a good point, because you do like paintings and things on glass, and you do glass work. Just so people are aware, because I don't think necessarily, I don't as well know how the full process of even like creating a stained glass piece works. So how does it work?
Sure. So manufacturers make sheets of glass in different colors by putting in different metals, and they're sold at the store. I go to the Vinery in Madison, Wisconsin on the east side and get my work there. But basically you use a glass cutter and cut out different patterns that are within the realm, or can be cut. You cut it, you have to grind it down. And then you can either use foil or you can use like a lead border between pieces, and then you solder it all together and there is your piece.
Yeah, because those who are familiar with glass, obviously, it's not an easy medium to morph. And like some of the pieces that you have are like really detailed. So like how does that work with pieces like that?
Yeah, definitely. It takes a lot of practice for sure. But when you use a glass cutter, it's a small wheel that gets oiled. It's a tiny, tiny wheel with a little blade on it that you run across the glass, and you can use pliers or your hands to break apart the glass. But when you're making those deeper curves and more detailed parts to it, you use these special pliers called grozing pliers, or grozers, and you can nip at the glass, but sometimes that can get you in trouble because the glass can break on you.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an act of patience and practice. But there's also the grinders that you can use bits with. So you can use a really small bit, like a 0.5 inch bit, and really kind of get in and grind that glass down to get those more intricate curves. It's a process.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it, because I've seen some of the stories that you post on Instagram of you like cutting the glass and stuff, and I'm like, there has to be glass all over the place sometimes. Yeah.
There is. I find myself getting cuts on the daily on my hand, even when I wear gloves. It's really a labor of love, but it's fun.
Yeah, because what do you think it is about glass specifically that like spoke to you so much in like wanting to create with that medium?
That's a good question. I really like the idea of translating a drawing or an image into glass work. And a lot of how I got the designs for my more recent work that I just do on my own, not commission wise, is to look at traditional tattoos, because they do have kind of that 3-part factor of bold lines and, simple colors that are really contrasting and stand out.
What was like the first piece that you got commissioned for stained glass? What was the first one that you did?
I think the first piece that I got commissioned for was a dog. I started doing pet portraits pretty early on. because one of the pieces that I had practiced on my own was a side profile of a dog. And so I started making them for people, just charging for materials, and then it slowly built up from there. The great part about commissions is being able to add my own twist onto people's pets or objects and making it into something that they can cherish forever, especially when a pet has passed.
Yeah. No, and it's just such a cool thing to hang up in your house, and I'm just amazed at like the detail and stuff that you can get with glass. It's just it's pretty mind-blowing for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I need to send you one after the show.
Yeah, do like a side portrait of my face or something.
Yes.
That I can hang up. That would be awesome. So were you always like very artistic, like growing up? Did you enjoy art as a
I
kid?
did. Yeah. My parents really allowed me to do as much drawing and a lot of different art mediums. I was trying to remember as what I did as a kid for crafting, and it was a lot of 3D modeling of using like packing peanuts or, Dixie cups, a lot of building, and that was fun. And we had one of those big clunky PCs that had like kid pics and the Microsoft Paint on it. And so being able to start with graphic design, quote unquote, that was pretty fun. But of course, then Crayola, just a lot of drawing all the time. I remember that. Yeah.
Do you think the early, like, more textile stuff is why you enjoy the stained glass now, like working in 3D modeling and things like that?
I really think so. It's a hands-on process and I love it. I really love it. I prefer it to sitting down to a computer and doing digital design, although I do like drawing on Procreate with my iPad, which I would consider digital design.
Yeah, for sure. Do you do that as a job? Like, is that your full-time gig?
Yeah, I have my own LLC that I do work under. So I'll sell digital drawings on Etsy for people to commission those, or people will reach out to me to do those. I use my iPad to draw the patterns for my stained glass pieces, actually. Oh, cool. And then I bring it over to my Cricut app, which is like a crafting app that connects to a Cricut machine, which will cut out vinyl. Oh. Because some people will draw out their patterns on paper and just trace like cathedral, which is like translucent glass, over it and use a Sharpie or a pen or a paint pen. And some people cut out the design on paper and glue that on, cut it out. But I have found that using the removable vinyl on the Cricut has been able to make my pieces more precise.
When did this like turn into something bigger? Like, when did it go from becoming more of something that you were doing for fun or a hobby to something that you were taking more seriously?
It started pretty much immediately. Actually, I was able to kind of build more of my skills because I was having some local art shows in town with my previous medium, which was the glass painting. So I was hanging those up in shops on State Street in Madison. And with the money that I was making from selling those, I was able to quickly invest in more stained glass material, which is expensive.
I bet, yeah. I bet.
And just kind of learn from there. I would consider myself self-taught. I would confer with the owner of the glass store pretty often, but a lot of the time it was just me experimenting on my own and then translating that into a piece that I would be doing. But, each piece, and people tell me too, is just getting better and better.
It's a lot of soldering too, or is that what that is, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
A lot of dangerous things go into such a beautiful piece of artwork, it seems like.
It's true. Yeah, the solder is, lead and tin. And so I advise people who hold it to wash their hands afterwards. It's a small amount and lead doesn't get through the skin unless there's a cut or anything, which is why I wear gloves, but, work in a well-ventilated area. But you're totally right. Yeah. Between the glass cuts and the solder fumes, it's a lot of dangerous things that go into making a piece that is pretty on the eyes.
It makes you really think back to when people did this in churches and stuff, like what tools they used to like make these pieces.
I know. I was trying to do some research on it, and I can't for the life of me know what they used to really cut it and how different that is from the glass cutters we have today.
When were you like first introduced? Like, can you remember like the first piece of like stained glass that like inspired you or like made you want to start?
I would have to say it was some of the pieces on Instagram that I had seen. And also I had been talking with a friend of mine previously who was getting his girlfriend into stained glass because she had an interest in it. It's hard to remember the exact moment that really kind of sparked my interest in stained glass. I think it was more of the medium of working in something that is reflective and bright in the light.
Oh, yeah. What were some of the pieces that you saw on Instagram? Were they similar to what you're doing now or very different?
Yeah, there's one page, there are 2 pages actually that I follow, and you should follow them as well if you'd like. Yeah. One is Snip Glass and the other is Booze Tooth. So Snip Glass, I believe her name is Courtney. She does Simpsons based work, and I just totally dig it. She uses a glass saw for it to get those really intricate cuts to make their facial expressions. It's amazing. And I'm not at that level yet of using a glass saw. I'm doing mostly hand cuts and just grinding it down. And the other is Booze Tooth or Brinley. And she makes a lot of tattoo inspired work as well. Tattoo inspired stained glass, I would say, and just a lot of funky stuff. It's really great. And she was a big portion of what inspired me as well.
No, that's really cool. And you talked about tattoos a couple of times, because I read that you're inspired by like Western traditional tattoos, tattoo design, things like that. What is it about tattoos and things like that that you enjoy so much? Or the design of them?
Like Western traditional is really bold and bright for the most part. Traditional tattoos, just those factors together really appealed to me because it's easy to translate an inspired design by those tattoos into stained glass. And so I've done, things like the snake, done a few cowboys with cowboy skulls.
Yeah.
And those have been inspired. Right now I'm working on kind of like a side profile of a woman, like butterfly wings. That's pretty popular. So just kind of like taking things, being inspired, turning it into a stained glass design and kind of working from there.
Because have you ever thought about doing like tattoos yourself? Like have you like tattooing in general?
Yeah, I worked at a tattoo shop as an apprentice for a little while and then like counter staff. Things just didn't work out from there, but that's okay. Went on to be a barista and went back to school, and I'm enrolled in school now. Been for a while now doing stained glass and schoolwork. Stained glass feels like, the creative outlet for me. It helps me stay more disciplined in school, I think. Do my work and then as a break, get to do stained glass.
Yeah. Are you studying like a similar thing in school?
Haven't specialized or specifically chosen a major. Right now, I've been exploring mechanical engineering for the design aspect. I really enjoyed that part and building. Yeah,
mechanical engineering is a tough major.
I know. And so, before mechanical engineering, I was exploring just the general pre-major of arts and sciences. Mm-hmm. So I was able to do some art classes with charcoal and life drawing, etc., and doing some other biology courses, which I also really enjoy, like anatomy and physiology.
Yeah, because I went to Bradley University, which is in Illinois, but they have a big engineering program, and some of my friends were engineers, and I'm like, this is really tough. Like, this sounds hard.
I know. My dad and brother are electrical engineers.
Oh.
And so that is somewhat what inspired it. But also my current math teacher, who I had 2 semesters ago, is a mechanical engineer professor, and he does stained glass too. So I would say that he was also an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
For starting my work and continuing with it.
Yeah. Is it the same sort of work? What sort of stuff is he making with stained glass? Have you seen his stuff?
Yeah, I have. So I can't for the life of me remember what his wife's business name is. I'll have to look it up and send it to you. But he and his wife work together sometimes. His wife is the one who owns the business, but they do larger panels, which are just awe-inspiring. They're crazy. But they work on those together sometimes. Of course, he's wrapped up in his schoolwork as well, especially at the moment.
Sure.
I showed him some of my work, and he was like, yeah, I really wish that I could work in those smaller pieces rather than doing the big panels right now. But both are fun. Yeah,
because is that ever like a goal for you to maybe do like a larger, massive project, like a window or something of stained glass?
That would be really fun. Yeah. I've been doing a lot of research on how to install stained glass pieces into windows, and I've seen a few different methods used.
How do they do that?
They use a border around it like I do with my work already, like a lead border, a zinc border, and they put it in the frame of the window and use like either silicone caulk or, wood framing around it.
Because do you think I'm sure they're different in different ways, but is it harder to work more intricately on a smaller piece or do like a very large piece of stained glass?
The only large piece that I've done was like 2 by 3 feet. And that was back in May of 2020 during lockdown and everything. And that turned out crappy, but it was still fun. And I found that, the smaller pieces are harder to grind and to foil and to place. But I would say that, they each have their difficulties. The large cuts, they're hard to grind as well because I have a cover on it so that glass bits don't fly in my face, but I also wear glasses. Yeah. It's hard to take a larger piece and try to grind it down for those curves.
How long does a typical piece take you if you say for the snake one that you did, how long did that take from start to finish?
The cuts themselves took probably about 30 minutes to an hour. I just work while watching TV or listening to music. The grinding portion takes about an hour. The foiling portion takes about an hour and a half. And then the soldering portion itself, I would say, is the soldering and the polishing. And adding the patina is the longest part, probably accumulating to 5 hours. So it takes about 8 to 10 hours per piece.
Yeah, that's a while for a smaller piece,
Yeah, including the designing, adding details, and trying to make it as detailed but easy for me to cut as possible.
Yeah, because is there a lot of color choices to choose from for those? So when you are making it?
There are. I usually have to go to the glass store to go get my supply on it. But right now I have a pretty good arsenal of colors. It's just having to choose a color palette that is a little bit more difficult, but also fun. It's a fun challenge. But some colors are more expensive than others. Like pink is more expensive. It's one of the more expensive shades or colors of glass because they mix gold in to get that pink hue. So I'll get that sometimes. Sometimes it's on sale. I got a few pieces back here.
Saving them up for a really pink forward piece.
That's right. That's right.
So do you think your past and how you started drawing on or painting on glass and even your drawing helped you with stained glass? Do you think the skills translated at all, even though it's more hands-on?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think that I would be able to make the designs that I could if I wasn't practicing drawing weekly, daily, just whenever I have free time. It's just second nature.
Yeah, because I think when people see tattoos, even if we're using that analogy on people, someone had to draw that, and a lot of times it's the tattoo artists that are drawing these designs for people that are then tattooing. So it's almost a 2-step process. You have to be good at drawing as well as tattooing. And I feel that might be the same for stained glass too.
Totally. I'd think so. A lot of people use some online applications to make their patterns too, which I think can assist them, but definitely having an eye for design and kind of cohesive.
Because is there something out of the realm that's not impossible, but very hard to do in stained glass that you couldn't do a subject or an object or something that would be either too complex or that to do with stained glass?
I think faces are pretty hard to do if you're not painting them with vitreous paint, which is special glass paint that you bake and then it's permanent. I use the enamel that I used on glass previously because it's permanent. So I'll use it on stained glass for details, but I'd say it's pretty hard to make a face without it turning out pretty creepy because,
Yeah.
because there's cheeks, but you don't know whether to add your lip lines out like this. So you're like the Joker or up like this, you're marionette.
Yeah. Have you done faces before?
Yeah. I was commissioned to do an Independence Day scene.
A whole scene on a stained glass piece?
Yeah. Yeah. What is that guy's name? His name is Jeff.
In Independence Day you're talking about?
Yes.
Is it Will Smith or the other guy?
The other guy.
I don't know. I don't remember the other guy. I've only seen it once.
Oh, I hate myself for not remembering this. It's going to come to me. But yeah, a scene from that was pretty fun too. But I used permanent paint to do some details on him, but turned out well.
I mean, that just seems really difficult, like painting or doing a whole scene with stained glass. Was it like a square piece? Like a square
Jeff
piece?
Goldblum.
Oh, there you go. Sorry. Of course. Yeah. You know, it's weird that you forget about him in that movie, because I forget about Jeff Goldblum all the time, though. So, yeah. Jeff Goldblum is like such an interesting character in real life, you know?
He is. He's beloved.
Yeah, he's an American treasure for sure. Do you ever watch Portlandia, the show?
I do sometimes. I love Fred Armisen. They look similar.
They do. And he's actually on he's in an episode in like a sketch. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Selling like different kinds of knots. It's really good. If everyone should look it up and watch it if they're interested. I also read it was comic books you're heavily inspired by, and I also have seen like The Simpsons as well. What is it about like comic books and let's just talk about the Simpsons specifically? What do you love so much about that show?
Oh, I love The Simpsons. I grew up watching The Simpsons. I love the colors. I love the animation. Like the earlier seasons are just hilarious to me. They're nostalgic. Mm-hmm. I comfort watch them all the time, weekly. My family gets annoyed at that.
Do you still watch them now? Do you still watch
I do.
Yeah.
Not so much the newer episodes. I haven't seen those actually. Because, I don't know, there's been switches in voice actors. Voice actors have passed, just kind of different production teams. But, yeah I love watching it.
I mean, isn't that wild that a show's been on so long that some of the voice actors have passed away?
I know.
It's wild that it's been on that long.
So long.
Because it's like the tone very different now than it was back then?
I think so.
Yeah.
Most definitely. You know, the jokes have changed. Humor changes to match the climate that we're in.
Sure.
But a lot of the jokes from the previous seasons actually really fit well with things that happen today. And you'll see like The Simpsons predicted it. But,
right.
You know, it's just them just taking like a raw approach to humor.
And it's also like when you have that many episodes, you got to predict something. There's something in there that's going to happen, because
I swear,
just like if you have thousands of episodes, there's going to be something in there. There's got to be. I just feel like probability wise. Where do you want to take like all this from here? Are you because you said you're going back to school? Are you looking to like do art full time and like make that your job in stained glass and stuff like that, or is it just sort of a part-time thing for you?
I want a degree to fall back on.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea.
I really like the prospect of doing what I'm doing now, which is studying and doing my stained glass on the side, or 50-50, I would say. If it does take off, then amazing. I would be pretty overwhelmed with how to work with that. But it's been going really well now. You know, I've really enjoyed doing it. And I can see myself doing it for years to come and just continually, hopefully, improving.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it a lot. I've always had this thought in the back of my mind of whether I should pursue art as a full major. And if I'm doing like mechanical engineering or like arts and humanities now, then there's always an opportunity to make that focus into something art related. Sure. But no matter what I study or end up doing, there will always be art to do.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah, it never goes away.
Nope. Yeah. Just got to do it.
Yeah. And so like looking at the stained glass and like the people's reaction, like the people that you make them for and how positive their reaction is, has there been a favorite either reaction that you've got from giving a piece to someone, or just a favorite piece you've done so far of stained glass?
I just finished up this puppy portrait recently. I think it was of a Saint Bernard. It's a black, white, and brown dog. Big, fluffy baby. It's on my page. But, you know, a friend from high school had reached out to me to make it for a family member or a friend of hers. And so made it. She picked it up. And I think it's just so incredibly amazing when people reach out to me to make pieces for other people in their lives. Because Wow.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. But I loved making this dog piece. It was super fun, something new. It had a nice background on it. Big dog, iridescent nose. Mm-hmm. Super cute. It turned out really nicely. And they both just loved it so much. You know, she came back to comment on my page saying how much she loved it. And that it warms my heart so much. It makes me so happy. Getting
like stained glass for some reason hits a different spot than like a regular painting, and I don't know why that is. Yeah, it's just such a cool thing to get, you know. It's so unique, and but yet it looks so much like the thing. That's the cool part, I think. I don't know.
That's the ultimate goal, to make it look like the thing that it is.
Yeah. I mean, abstract stained glass might. Is that a thing? Like people just making sort of abstract art in stained glass? I'm sure it is. Yeah, totally. I have a piece right here that I had actually done. Excuse my reach, but you know, sure. Like one of these guys, just out of scrap. It's fun. It's cathartic. Yeah. It's a nice way to use the pieces of glass that I probably won't be using for a future piece because they're either too small or the wrong color. Yeah, because how big are the pieces that you get to cut out of? Because I imagine if you cut a certain amount of pieces out of that, you can't really use it for other stuff at a certain point. Yeah, you know, placing the stencils or the vinyl stencils strategically on a sheet of glass that I would need a lot of is definitely a fun game as well. I really like that the removable vinyl can be replaced, you know, if I mess up in one way, because I'll have to place it strategically so that I can cut the glass cutter along it and actually break the glass without cutting into the other designs. Mm. The sheets that I usually buy are 12 inches by 12 inches, but right now the glass store I visited this last week, they're selling big sheets like 2 by 3. So I might have to pick some of those up soon, make a big piece. Yeah, because when you cut it, do you accidentally sometimes break the glass? Yes, all the time. And so I try to have extras, but I also try to adjust the way that I'm cutting. Mm. It's a weird balance, you know. If I'm making a straight cut, then it's super easy to just break. It's totally good. But if I have to kind of maneuver my cuts and make a more difficult one, then I'll use a running pliers, which are pliers, but they have a little bit of like an obtuse angle. And you just go on the side of the glass and it just breaks it off. Super clean sound. It's a lot of nice sounds too, you know, running across the glass and then breaking it. Those clean cuts are really nice, but there are also not so nice sounds like glass breaking. Sure. Unintentionally. Because do you notice when you're like creating stained glass coming from a background of like drawing and painting as well, is there like a different headspace you're in when you're doing it, or is it just similar like artistic headspace? Like, because I feel like it's more tactile and more like involved. Absolutely. You know, I'm sure that people who knit or do other like pottery and stuff, I don't do those crafts. I'd love to at some point, but I just don't have the capacity to try and learn those right now. Yeah. Although I really admire those crafters. It's kind of a different headspace, I would say. It's so relaxing when you kind of get into the swing of things and actually have a little bit of like an understanding for it. In the beginning, it's totally daunting and it's frustrating to try and cut, but you pick up quickly on it and it becomes really just relaxing to try and, you know, get the cuts swiftly, almost like putting together a puzzle, you know, a semi-mindless activity of putting stuff together, you know, cutting. It's really great. Well, because when it was like really hard for you at first and like you were learning, what made you want to keep doing it? I wanted to make a really nice piece. Things went pretty swiftly on like the first and second go. And so, you know, when you have a pattern on top of that glass, your goal is to just make the glass the same size as that pattern. And, you know, you just grind and nip at it and kind of like measure twice, cut once sort of thing. Sure. There is, if you cut a little bit larger, there is room for steady improvement, and you're just improving with every piece and every cut. Yeah, because I forget who I was talking to, but there's a word for it where like at the beginning when you're like in any sort of field, if you're creating something or you're drawing or you're painting or whatever, there's like a certain amount of time where your skill doesn't match up with your taste. Like you want these things to look like a certain way, but your skill level's not there yet. So you really have to like push through that to get to the point where it does. But yeah, I've always found that people that really enjoy it and aren't just doing it for money or whatever, or fame or something, they push through that and they just keep going because they just really like to do it. Like you say, it's cathartic, or they just want to express themselves in some way. Do you do like pieces outside, like the one you showed me, outside of just commissions as well for stained glass too?
I do. When I have the time to. Right now I have 2 pieces behind my laptop that still need to be ground and foiled and soldered. So they're really just in the beginning stages. But I really do like to make a piece for myself when I can. Like that snake piece I did just for myself. I'm just having it hang in my room. It's a nice little ditty.
Yeah. I just picture like in 4 years, your room is just covered in stained glass pieces that you've made.
It's covered in pieces that I had done just as practice. So wow. I'm contemplating just like tossing those and replacing them with like newly updated ones. Maybe I should just hang on to them to see the progress that was made. I hang on to a few, but like the ones that have like cracks in them that I had done for myself, if I had held the soldering iron on there too long, I toss because there's not really any salvaging them.
Yeah, no, that would be cool to see like when you did like your first project and when you did like 3 years later, how different they are.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm planning on making a redo of one of my first lettering pieces just to kind of see how far I've come along with that. So yeah. I think that'll be a cool thing. I'll post that pretty soon.
Yeah, but that has to feel cool though, that you are progressing and like things are definitely, you're getting better and better. That has to be a cool feeling.
It is. I really like looking back at the pieces, take everything with a grain of salt. Sometimes pieces don't turn out exactly how I want, but sure. We're always our own worst critics, right? So
I mean, you're the person staring at it for 5 hours, so you're going to be more critical, I feel. Yeah.
Sometimes I just have to like take a day off from it and then come back to it with fresh eyes, and like a lot of people with projects, but sure. It always turns out great.
Where can people find like more about what you're doing, or if they want to get a commissioned piece, where can they reach you at?
Absolutely. So I do most of my work on Instagram, which is at Silke Noel, SilkeNoel. I also have my email, silkenoelart@gmail.com. People can reach out to me there if they don't use Instagram. I use Facebook a little bit. It's under the same name, but reaching out to me from there. I also have my Etsy shop, same name. You can always shoot me a message on there and we can get things worked out. Other than that, just send me a DM on Instagram, and that's the best way to communicate with me. Fast and easy.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. Your work is really amazing. I'm very grateful that you came on and spoke with me, because I was like, this is so cool. Like people need to know about this. This is really cool. So definitely go check out the Instagram, because the pieces that you post are really cool.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so nervous to be on here. You are just so nice. Thank you.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate the time, and don't cut yourself too much with the glass. Be careful.
I'll try not to.
Be careful. Thank you.
Yeah, safety first, right? Thank you. Sure.